Hello, everyone. It's me, the textbook completionist, back. Um, we haven't really gone to textbooks yet. We've just done Sifle Kodesh, but I'm cool with that. Um, but I've been planning something in the background. Stay tuned for our first uh, secular textbook that we're going to go over. But for now, we're going to do something different than Mishnah. I know, well, it's not even Mishnah. We've just been um, doing like the introductions to like learning Mishnah of and also the also of Sibbe Zlaim, which that's gonna take a while, my friends. That's gonna be a long time. We're gonna be on that, but I'm still trying to figure out how to because of how like the sets are like arranged, like the safers are arranged for the Mishnah sets. Like for example, you have for like Masechet Bachot and Pe'ah, you'll have it with like all of your typical Rishonim, Samachronim, and then you have it all over again with like certain Rishonim, like a much more detailed commentary of the Rambam and of the Rashba on the other side, and then you have one that's just it literally goes over it all over again entirely with the what the Vilna Gaon's commentary Shnot Eliyahu. So it's a lot to go through. Then there's even just like after that, there's like the like Yalkute, like Rishonim, Achronim, like Perushim al Rishonim. There's like so much. Um, and I'm cool with that. Like it would mean that like this would be like a like this would be a multi-year project. Which I'm cool with, but it made me realize like I'd rather go kind of like a little bit slow and steady wins the race, and then just do kind of like a mixture of things. Like if I do kind of like 20 minutes of Mishnah, and then 20 minutes of Halakha, and then 20 minutes of this, 20 minutes of that. Like as I kind of build up my time of studying Torah and things like that, and my schedule for limud, then that way I'm kind of like steadily going in a direction which I'm learning a lot of different things instead of just kind of being like go all in on Mishnah right now, all in on Gemara right now. That way I have kind of like a wide breadth that's still very much B'iyun. Um, so, but speaking of like this book is actually what we're going to learn in this series is going to be a little bit more of a not as like B'iyun. Like it's not there's not as many. I'll tell you what it is. It is the Yalkut Yosef, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. There's two parts to it. There's Chelek Aleph and Chelek Bet. Right, Chelek Aleph is Hilchot Ashkemat Boker until Sof Hilchot Shabbat v'Rosh Chodesh, and then it picks up in Moadim, in the second Chelek, and it's just like I never really studied Shulchan Aruch before. I've looked up things on the Shulchan Aruch. If if someone if my wife asked me like a halacha questions, like I'll look up a lot of times. I'll look it up myself. Of course, I'll ask a rabbi, and I mean, there's people who have trained for years for this. So who am I to just be like, oh, I found it in the Shulchan Aruch, this and that. But I always like to look for it myself, especially if it's a question that I think I know I can answer. Like for example, one time my wife, bought a horn from a non-Jew, and so the question is, can you kosher it? Right? Can you is Israel to make it kosher? And so I'm like, it's made out of a ram's horn. So I was like, that's weird. Okay. So then I looked in the Shulchan Aruch, and then eventually I looked in the Aruch Shulchan, and I found that you can't do it because the only way to kosher would be Hagala. And if you do Hagala to like something instead of keratin, it'll just fall apart. So that's why they said you just can't kosher it. So that's kind of an example of my very limited exposure to halacha, and I think this is kind of like my start to it. This is very much like a starter's kind of really getting a wide breadth of just a lot of different halachot, um, which is cool. Like I feel like like every part of Torah scratches a different itch, right? There's people that really want to do things, but there's people who want to who are more into the mysticism side of things, which I have some of those books too, which I would love to eventually incorporate that into my learning. Some people like midrash, some people like A lot of like Agadata, some people like Gemara, but Pilpul and this and that. So there's so many different beautiful faces of the Torah that um, I want to be able to kind of really go into all of them, and so that's why I picked up the set, and I'm really excited. And without further ado, let's just kind of break down how it's going to start. We're going to start with Siman Aleph, which is Hilchot Hashkamat HaBoker, which is the laws pertaining to waking up in the morning, right? So it's interesting because even though in Judaism our days start in the nighttime, right? When it comes to Tzedek Kochavim, that's when it's like it is the next day, right? Like right now, it's technically Tuesday, right? And what's interesting though is that we're starting here from the day that you wake, like the day of that you wake up, like in the morning. We're starting from the morning, right? And so it's interesting. A lot of things in Judaism, most things in Judaism start from the nighttime, but there's a few things that start actually from the daytime, right? One example is, right from the pasuk in Yehoshua, "V'higita bo yomam v'layla," we learn that if you make Birkat Torah in the morning, it lasts for you until the nighttime. Even though the nighttime is still is considered to be the next day because of that pasuk, it lasts until then, so you don't have to say it again. I mean, of course, there's probably a bunch of like, exceptions of, like if you do this, if you do that, if you sleep in between, do you have to say it again? But again, that's out of my knowledge right now. Hopefully, it will be in my knowledge. Bezat Hashem soon. So without further ado, let's start. First, just dedicating this Torah learning l'shem yichud gushav v'rechu shchinte b'tchilu chemu urchim utchilu liachad Hashem otiyot yud he bevav he. Right, so learning, just dedicating this learning to the unification of the Shekhinah, um, and the holy name, in the holy unification, and for the love of Hashem. So, okay. Halakha Aleph. Shaninu b'Masechet Avot, Yehuda ben Tema Omer. So it teaches in Pirkei Avot. It teaches Yehuda ben Tema says, "Heve az kanamer v'kal kanesher v'ratz ketzvi v'gibor ka'ari." So be bold like a tiger, and light like an eagle, fast like a deer, and brave or strong as a lion. To do what? לעשות רצון אביך שבשמיים. To do the will of your Father in heaven. ולמדו מכאן, we learn from this, ארבעה דברים בעבודת הבורא. We learn from this 4 things in regards to serving Hashem. By the way, I should probably not assume that everyone knows what the Sefer is, so I probably should have given like a little intro to the Sefer. This is Yalkut Yosef. It was written by Yitzchak Yosef, Chacham Yitzchak Yosef, Shlita, who is the son of Chacham Ovadia Zatzal, who is probably one of like the greatest, if not the greatest, Sephardic mind to come in the last century. In regards to halachot, in regards to being a spiritual leader, etc. And I mean, a lot of people can kind of attribute this work to him because he looked very closely over its notes and made a lot of edits and things like that. And again, it's really collecting things from his work, right? From Yabia Omer, Yechaveh Da'at, Chazon Ovadia. Like there's a lot. It's pretty much just pulling things from what he wrote, what Chacham Ovadia wrote. So okay, let's keep going. So right, be bold as a tiger, light as an eagle, fast as a deer, and strong or brave as a lion, to do the will of your Father in heaven. We can learn 4 things about divine service here, which is what? What does it mean by to be bold like a tiger? that when someone is doing that, when you do a mitzvah, do not be ashamed of people that will mock you. Um, it's there's like, when it comes to religious practice, I will not even exclude this to just Judaism, right? Anyone that consider themselves to be a religious person, there are those who will mock them and will be cynical towards them. You can see this. There's a book that I read by Fyodor Dostoevsky called The Brothers Karamazov, and in it there's three brothers whose father was murdered. But so one of the brothers is a Russian Orthodox monk, another brother is like an atheist, or more like anti-theist, I should say. And it's like there's almost like he's like looking to see the righteous person fail, right? A person who is antithetical, um, who will say things like, God forbid, I will choose not to believe that there is a God because of theodicy, because there's bad things that happen to good people, good things that happen to bad people, etc. And that when that people that kind of approach that mindset and hold a kind of cynicism towards religious views and religious practices and religious lifestyles, that there's this almost like this hope that to see them fall, and so people might look at me wearing a kippah, tzitzit, things like, I mean, I wear my tzitzit tucked in, but that might mock me, right? I might, say, hey, I can't work on Saturdays. Like, why? Well, it's Shabbat, right? I keep a Shabbat. I don't turn on lights. I don't use electricity. I don't use my phone. Things like that, right? So, I mean, there's obviously also weird things too, like that. I mean, like looking from the outside, right? Now it's the Omer. You see, we're growing our beards long, our hair is growing long, we're looking disheveled, things like that. People might look at that and be like, "That's just crazy," right? God forbid. People might seriously judge it. And so, what Yehuda ben Tema here is saying is, don't be afraid of that. Don't be ashamed of that, right? Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is that you're serving Hashem. You're doing the mitzvot, and there's nothing more honorable than that. Okay, v'kal kenesher, and light like a eagle. What does that mean? Lemaher le'atzum enav marot bara. To hastily shut your eyes from evil sights. Why? כי ראיית העיניים היא תחילת העבירה. Because the what you see with your eyes is the beginning of sin. Which, I mean, we say it in Shema twice a day, um, right? In the third paragraph. Right? Like, because it's with our hearts, which is like our emotions, our thoughts, and in our eyes, that kind of cause people to sin, right? That's where it starts. um so when you shut it from the source, which is your eyes, um I see this especially true for men, right? Men, I feel like, are kind of very visual creatures, where it's really about what they see. There really is about like what they see, um that really drives kind of their um more base natures to overcome them. And again, there's nothing wrong with a base nature, right? God designed is Hashem designed us this way, right? God forbid, I'm not going to be like, oh, don't ever have sex, this and that, da da da. That sex, Judaism is a very sex positive religion, and it's about, right. How do you channel it in a way that is b'kedusha, that's for holiness, instead of just for, it's just wasting, right? It has to be something that's productive and creates and makes the world a better place. Okay. ורץ כצבי, and fast like a deer, שהרגליים ירוצו לדבר טוב, that someone's legs will run to a good thing. וגיבור כארי, and brave and strong like a lion, זו גבורת הלב לנצח היצר. It is just like I was just speaking about. It is the strength of the heart to win over the inclination. It's interesting. It's interesting. He doesn't say yetzarah, but it says yetzer, just the inclination, the drive. ולכן יתקבל כארי, and therefore he will overcome like a lion לעמוד בבוקר לעבודת בוראו. To wake up in the morning to serve Hashem, שיהא מעורר השחר. ועל כל פנים לא אחד זמן תפילה וקריאת שמע. That he will wake up right in the morning, early in the morning, and have zrizut, and to not delay the time for prayer and kriyat shema in the morning. Right? That, like, as soon as I wake up, it's like model lefanecha melech b'kayam, and then there's a siddur, right? There's you go and you use the bathroom, you say Asher Yatzar, you put on your, you say Bekot HaShacha, you say Bekat Torah, and there's actually like a whole, like, everything is like, there's such like a, people talk about such like a strength of having a morning routine. Like, it's like this, like Judaism has like a mamish, like a real morning routine, which is like, it's like for each bracha in Bekot HaShacha, you do certain things, right? Like, for example, like when you say, that's when you put like your key, your hat on and things like that, and that you should go to the Beit Knesset already with tefillin and talit on. I mean, although that if you live in a place surrounded by non-Jews, it might not be the safest thing to go out and walk. That's a later halacha that we'll go over, to walk with talit and tefillin on, because it might arouse hatred in others, and it's like why endanger why needlessly endanger ourselves like that, right? That wouldn't really be considered to be like a kiddush Hashem, right? If it's avoidable, because you can just, I don't know, you could just like some hole that you can just put it on. You go, and then as you go outside the door, you put your hand on the mezuzah on your door. You say some psukim, and then you go into your car. You go, already me'utaf and already with tefillin, like to the Beit Knesset, and you go in, and then you say that you touch the mezuzah of the Beit Knesset, and then you say some more psukim, and then you go in, and then there's a whole, like, especially like kabbalistically, the Kabbalists are very, very, very strict about like the order in which they do things, because it's like there's like a seder to everything. There's an order to everything. Okay. Yeah. So great. Bet. Halakha bet. צריך האדם שיהיה אצלו בטבע והרגל תמידי לרוץ לדבר מצווה. A person needs to kind of ennature themselves, make it their basically to habituate themselves, to make a regular habit, a consistent regular habit, to run for the sake of mitzvah. What does that mean? ויש המאחרים בשנתם, and there are those who delay their who lengthen their sleep, ומתעכבים בביתם, who kind of like like stuck to their houses, ואחר כך רצים לבית הכנסת, and after that run to shul, run to בית הכנסת. ואין זו מידת הזריזות. There is not the midah of alacrity. There's not the trait of alacrity in this, right? And this is actually a big idea. This is a big idea. Why? דאף שרואים אותם רצים ומזדרזים, even though people see the person running and being alacrious, זה מפני שאיחרו, right? Yeah, שאיחרו להשכים קום. It's because they delayed. It's because they delayed getting up earlier. ולכן רצים להספיק להגיע לתפילה בבית הכנסת, and they're coming just to be on time. right? ולעולם יהא אדם זריז לתפילה ולתורה ואל ימשך אחר השינה והתענוגים. A person should always be alacrious for tefillah and Torah, and they should not be pulled by sleep and delicacies and pleasantries. ואל יפתרו, or is it yepatu? It means like to persuade. Valitu yitzro litrashel bigklal asaro unchasav. Sorry, asharo unchasav. And a person should not, persuade their inclination to become lax in their service of Hashem because of their wealth and because of their what's the word, like assets. Shakol cholef ve'abed. Everything is transient and and lost, right? It's like in Qur'an it says ve'akol avel, right? Like when we're on our deathbed, we don't think about how much money we made and this and that. Like we think about like the things that really matter to us, which is like what kind of person were we? How did we treat other people? How did we serve Hashem? Right? Did we finish our tikkun? Right? Did we do what our job was in this world to do? Each person has their own unique job. ואילו תורה ושכרה עומדים לעד. And Torah and mitzvot, its rewards stand forever. And there's a beautiful idea here of like, what is real alacrity? Alacrity. So yes, if the opportunity comes in front of you immediately and you run to it, yes, that's an idea of like rushing for it. But also, alacrity doesn't always have to look like rushing. What alacrity could look like is that you wake up early and that you can and that you can properly prepare yourself. Take your time to get ready for davening. Take your time, to shower, make yourself smell nice, get ready, get dressed. Because when you're davening, the Rambam says you should dress up like you're meeting with someone who's very important. Because ultimately, that's what you're doing. You're literally having a meeting with Hashem. You're having a meeting with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? And so take the time to prepare yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and then you can then daven benekiyut, right? You're not gonna, like you show up a little bit early, so then you can say Pitum Baktoret, you can say Ptichat Eliyahu, you can say Korbanot, and a lot of, especially Chutz La'aretz, a lot of shows, they daven very fast, right? And listen, I get it, all the power to them, right? But if you want to take that next step in in your avodah, especially that's what tefillah is. Avodah is defined as tefillah, right? En avodah ela tefillah. It says in the Mishnah. Um, Also the Rambam says it, but based off the Mishnah. But you know, to really take your time davening and to daven benekiyut, to pray benekiyut with cleanliness, not only physical cleanliness, right? Because you're not allowed to daven when you're physically dirty. That's not allowed. But also spiritual and mental and emotional cleanliness as well, right? To meditate a little bit beforehand, learn some Torah beforehand, right? Everything in davening has its purpose. It's put there for a reason. Okay. Halakha Gimel. How are you doing on time? I think I gotta go for like 45 minutes, like a total amount. It's already been like 25 minutes, so let's go for another 20 minutes, and we'll be wherever we'll be. I kind of want like the average like episode length of whatever I'm learning to be like 45 minutes because I feel like that's like the perfect amount of time to learn something. I feel like after that, that's when like my attention starts to waver and like that. Okay. הלכה ג' צריך להקדים לקום בבוקר כדי שיספיק להכין את עצמו להתפלל בציבור ובנקיות. Literally what we were just talking about. That one needs to make the time they wake up earlier in the morning in order to have enough time to prepare themselves to pray in a minyan and with cleanliness. שלא יפסיד זמן תפילה, to not lose out on time for davening, on time to pray. ונהגו בכמה קהילות ישראל, and there are a few congregations in Israel who hold this way. What do they do? Or like they have a tradition. What is their custom? שהשמש הולך בבוקר ודופק בדלת או בחלון לעורר הישנים בתפילה ועבודת השם. That the sun, שהשמש, not the shemesh, שהשמש. That's like there's like a um for Ashkenazi people that have the last name Clapper, that comes from the people that would in the morning they would knock on people's windows and knock on people's doors in the morning to wake them up to go to davening. Which that'd be awesome if they had that here, but obviously where I live, it's like no way it's happening. I shouldn't say no way, but um, you know what? I'll daven for it. Bezrat Hashem that will have a keilah here where I live that will have the someone who can step up. Maybe it'll even be me to knock on people's doors and windows in the morning to wake them up to go to davening. Okay. Because as shemesh, because right, the shema should probably come, would probably wake up with the sun to knock on people's doors, right? Because you really want to. There's big chashivut, like it says in the Mishnah. There's big chashivut in waking up with the in praying with the sun as it's coming up, right? Um, okay, or to pray as the sun's coming up. I shouldn't say. Well, technically, like even all celestial bodies, like everything's constantly praising Hashem, right? So all these things are all praising, one God, right? Um, okay. Halakha Daled, or I should probably say Saif. Probably say Saif. Saif Daled. אל יחשוב האדם על השינה שכל מה שתהיה בריבוי. One should not think, in terms of sleep, that increasing one's sleep, יש בה תועלת לגוף. It has a benefit to the body. שהרי הסכימו הרופאים המובהקים distinguish that indeed that esteemed doctors have agreed שלא יישן אדם פחות משש שעות, that someone should not sleep less than 6 hours, ולא יותר משמונה שעות, and not more than 8 hours. ויותר מזה מזיק לבריאות, and anything more than 8 hours is damaging to the body, is damaging to one's health. ואמרו בגמרא, in the Gemara it says, שינה לצדיקים רע להם ורע לעולם. Sleep for the righteous is bad for them and bad for the world. שהתורה שהן עוסקין בה מגינה על הדור. That the Torah that they are learning and busying themselves with, it protects and defends the current generation. ושהן מתבטלין פורענות באה לעולם. And when they become idle, and like when they nullify the Torah study, when they do bitul Torah, calamity comes upon the world. Wow. ועוד אמרו בגמרא תלמידי חכמים העוסקים בתורה בלילה, that in the Gemara it says that תלמידי חכמים, that wise people, that wise students that busy themselves and toil with Torah in the nighttime, מעלה עליהן הכתוב, the following pasuk is or the saying is attributed to them or is credited to them. It's as if they are busy toiling with the service of bringing sacrifices. Right? We don't have a temple anymore, so we can't give any sacrifices. But it's as if they are. It says also in the Talmud Yerushalmi, Hayaga, one who toils, so one who toils in his learning, which means like with modesty. What does it really mean? It means in the night, balayla. Lo bimhera hu shochech. He will not quickly forget what he learns. So that means like what you learn will stick when you learn in the evening, which we're doing right now. Right now it's like probably like 11 p.m. where I am. So, והרמב"ם כתב, and the Rambam says, אף שמצווה, even though a mitzvah ללמוד ביום ובלילה, even though it's a mitzvah for a person to learn in the day and in the night, אין אדם לומר רוב חוכמתו אלא בלילה. A person doesn't, אינו לומד, a person doesn't learn the majority of their wisdom, rather in the night. Meaning that, like, you obtain most of your wisdom from the nighttime, which is fascinating. Um, there's a very important practice called tikkun chatzot. Now we're in Sfat Omer, so now we only say tikkun leah. But it's basically you. It's the earliest time to start it. It's basically certain prayers that you can say. And the earliest time it starts is Halakhah midnight, which is probably what could be around like 1 or 2 in like 1:30 in the morning probably tonight. And it goes from then until dawn. And basically, it's like very auspicious during that time to wake up and and basically mourn over the loss and the destruction of the Beit Mikdash and the fact that we are in exile, right? That we might have a state of Israel, but we don't have a temple. We don't have Mashiach is not here yet, and so and when we left in exile in the second exile, which is the greatest exile, um, the Shekhinah also became covered, right? Like in the Zohar it says like an iron curtain came between us and heaven. So it's a very also some people have the custom to say vidui, to say to confess their sins during that time. And the Ben Ish Chai says to it's very fitting for one to, after saying tikkun chatzot, to learn Mishnah, which is like has the same letters as the word neshama, soul. Okay, are we? לפיכך, therefore, מי שרצה לזכות בקטע התורה, one who wants to merit the crown of Torah, ייזהר בכל לילותיו. He should be vigilant in all of his nights. ולא יאבד אפילו אחד מהם, and not to lose even one of his nights, בשינה ואכילה ושיחה. And with to not lose one of his nights with sleep, with eating, and with idle conversation. אלא בתורה ובדברי חוכמה. Rather with Torah and words of wisdom. It's good stuff. Okay. סעיף ה' ראוי לו לאדם, it's fitting for a person להימנע משינה ביום, to refrain from sleeping during the day, so like midday naps. Obviously, there's not gonna be like a blanket ban of like, oh, you should never ever sleep during the day. No. Okay, well, bear with me. Mishum bitul Torah, because of bitul Torah, which is kind of like like wasting the opportunity to learn Torah when you have the opportunity to learn Torah. Ulam, however, אם על ידי שישן מעט ביום יוכל ללמוד בלילה עד שעה מאוחרת יותר. However, if by sleeping a little bit during the day, they can learn later into the night, או שיוכל ללמוד יותר בריכוז ובעיון, and they can learn with greater focus and with greater depth, מותר לישון ביום. It is allowed. Okay? But lo yirbe b'shina. This should not really don't do it too much. Don't increase it. Don't take it too far. V'omnam, and indeed, al pi hakabbalah yesh liyamana milishon bayom. If you want to be a Kabbalist, now according to the Kabbalah, one should really not sleep during the day. V'chen, and likewise, b'Shabbat mutar lishon bayom. However, right, likewise, on Shabbat, it is allowed. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's encouraged to sleep during the day on Shabbat. Right? Shabbat Menucha. See, you can sanctify everything in Judaism. You can sanctify sleep. You can sanctify eating. Like everything can be elevated, and everything can be turned into a meaningful experience, which is amazing, right? Because we think that God forbid, we're supposed to not engage with this world at all. No, of course, this world is created for a reason. It's created for us to engage in it and to make it a better place, to make it a dwelling place for Hashem, right? which is to treat it kindly, treat the world kindly, treat its creations kindly. Um, there was actually recently a halacha. I'm not sure if it's so recent, but for example, foie gras, which is it's a horrible practice. It's a goose that is force fed, um, that's like force fed through a tube to like fatten its liver, and it's the liver of that goose, and it's just like it's a horrible practice. And there's a few rabbis that have come out and have been like, it's not kosher, even though goose is kosher, geese are kosher, they're they're kosher birds. But even if you do full shechita, no. Why? Because of tzal b'alei because it's causing unnecessary suffering to an animal. It's not okay. So okay, Seif Vav. יש אומרים that those שראוי לו לאדם, that it's fitting for a person לישון בחצי הראשון של הלילה. This is kind of a cool concept of like how people used to have two sleeps during the nighttime. People used to kind of like, they would sleep, let's say, from like 7 p.m. to like midnight, and then they would wake up and then they would like socialize for like 2 hours and then go back to sleep at like 2 a.m. and then wake up at like 6 a.m. Right? So like in reality, they're getting like they're just kind of like they're splitting like their 8 to 9 hours of sleep between like two sleeps. This was like a pretty common practice, probably like a couple thousand years ago, and it continued for a while. But it was a it's cool to see how he's talking about this now. Okay, I said, I think he is. Um, yeah. So there are those who say that a person should sleep during the first half of the night, right? So the night is two halves, from Tzedek Kochavim to Chatzot Halayla, right? It should be what, 6 hours, and then the other 6 hours um, are going to be the second half, right? Between Chatzot Halayla and um, dawn, which is what, nits, I think. Yeah. So okay, so sleep during the first night. So okay, you get your 6 hours. So let's say you sleep from like I don't know, like 8 to 2. Sorry, yeah, eight p.m. to 2 a.m. They give you 6 hours. ויעסוק בתורה בחצי השני של הלילה, and to busy yourself with Torah during the second half. Let's say from like 2 in the morning to, I don't know, 8 in the morning, something like that. ויש בזה תועלת לאדם. There's a benefit to one's to a person in what way? הן מצד בריאות וגופו, one from a physical health perspective, והן מצד הרוחניות בתיקון הנפש, and from a side of spirituality and rectifying the spirit, the soul. אולם בתלמוד שלנו, and however, or indeed, אולם could rather mean indeed or however, so let's see how it fits here. אולם בתלמוד שלנו, in our Talmud, in מסכת ברכות ס"ב עמוד ב', ובדברי הרמב"ם מבואר, and also in what the Rambam writes, שהשינה בסוף הלילה, um, בזמן עלות השחר, that sleep in the end of the night and around the time of alot hashachar. This is kind of what's considered to be like REM sleep, I guess. מועילה לבריאות הגוף. It benefits the health of the body. ולכן, אם רצה ללמוד בתחילת הלילה, and therefore, if one wants to learn in the beginning of the night, ולישון בחצי השני של הלילה, and to sleep during the second half, right? So learn the first half, sleep the second half. יכול לעשות כן. One is able to do so. ואם אפשר טוב שילמד סמוך לשקיעת החמה עד אחר צדק כוכבים, if it's and if possible, it's good to learn basically from the time of sundown until nightfall, right? Until the stars come out. Baboker samuch la'alot hashachar, and from sunrise עד חלot hashachar, until after sunrise. כדי לחבר היום ללילה בלימוד התורה, in order to connect the day and night with Torah, ולקיים but basically it's basically kind of like the ben hashmashot, or it's basically like it's like this weird halachic transition time between day and night, right? So like from sundown to um, to nightfall, it's like hard to tell if it's night or day. We cannot determine for certain. So it's like this in between stage. So you could learn during that time, and then if also in the morning, there's also a ben hashmashot in the morning that um, right. That's also kind of it's a transition time from night to day. If you learn during that time, then you can really fully what he says here, ulekayem v'higita b'yomam v'layla, and you meditated on it day and night. That's from pasuk from Sefer Yoshua. Mikol makom, and generally speaking, rabim enam noagim ken. The most people don't like do this. Ve'enam mechabrim yom lelayla keniska. They don't connect night and day in this way. שסמכו על הגמרא שלנו החולקת בזה על ירושלמי. The Gemara, like the Babylonian Talmud, has a dispute with the Jerusalem Talmud. Really, one should just try to just learn twice a day, in the morning and the evening, right? Whether it's you kind of do like a literally like I know that like something that is kind of pushed in the Sephardi world is like um, you do two halachot in the morning, two halachot in the evening, right? So like you learn when you say before you say Tanat Veliao, you learn two halachot, and then in the evening you learn two halachot, and then you're good. It's really like just learn, and we just did what? How many? We did six halachot, which is pretty good. In about 45 minutes, and that's with me with all my ramblings and all my shtuyot. Um, but but I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys joining me on this, and I'm having a lot of fun. Like I've already kind of covered the first, I'd say like 30 something halachot, um, and I'm kind of using this as a way to like really reinforce what it is that I'm learning, and which is kind of cool. So I'm having a really fun time with that, and it reminds me kind of how to like do like Kelim Yoshua, like the Sefer Kelim Yoshua, like Derech Halimud, like how to learn Torah. There's like a meta learning book. There's like a book that you can learn on how to learn Torah. Um, and he kind of really goes into like you basically have to like do like like pass throughs of everything that you read as if you're reading it for the first time again, which is like crazy because that means I'll be like learning the same thing forever. Um, but it's kind of similar to this where I'm like as I'm reading it, I'm like really like reading it word for word. I'm not like skipping over anything, which is kind of cool. So that's six halachot, and yeah, we'll just continue with more halachot about right, like waking up, when to daven, things like that, like especially in the morning, right? So like regarding sleep and right, how to even get up. I mean, what's interesting is that like halachically speaking, it's this is halakha. Like this is like actual halakha. This is what our rabbis tell us to do, which is like it's like even like they're telling us sleep between 6 to 8 hours. You should not sleep less than that, or more than 8 hours, right? That means that like technically, like if you're sleeping 5 hours a night, right? Which I'm not very, I'm very, I struggle heavily with getting enough sleep. Um, that's like me not listening to halacha, and I'm like, okay, halacha's telling me that I gotta sleep enough. There's also another interesting halacha where it's like by the 6 hour of the day, you have to eat a meal, meaning that from the time that you wake up, basically like, or is it the fourth hour, like between the fourth and the sixth hour of the day. So like, let's say you wake up at 8 a.m. That means that you should have your first meal at 12, right? Like you should not have your first meal after that. But let's say if you're learning Torah and you're like really like or if you're busy with a mitzvah, then you can really only delay until the 6 hour after you wake up. So that means that that'd be what 2 p.m. If you wake up at 8 a.m. and like you can, it's like at that point you literally have to stop and eat. Like you have to like, which is like so interesting. Like of how like you really have to like take care of your body. There's even halachot of like how to like go to the bathroom, which is just like if you feel like you have to go to the bathroom, you need to go to the bathroom. Like you shouldn't hold your bodily needs in you. Like you need to respect your body. You need to treat your body well. You need to listen to doctors also. Like the Rambam was very adamant of like like you listen to your physician, you take care of your body, things like that. Um, and so, if you notice, he's even quoting like distinguished doctors. He's like, "This is what the physicians say nowadays." And again, that might change with time as more research comes out, as we understand sleep more, which is probably gonna take a while because it's. I feel like I mean, we obviously we understand more about sleep now than we did ever before. But still, it's a lot of it is like kind of enigmatic. Um, but anyways, I'm rambling on. Thank you so much for joining me. I had so much fun learning some Yalkut Yosef, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch with you guys. Feel free to engage. I'm not. I mean, like, yes, I'm doing this for me. Like, I'm doing this. Not. I don't really care who sees this. I don't really care, right? Like, what kind of engagement there is. Um, right? Because my main motivation here is to use this as a way to hold myself accountable with my own learning. Um, but again, like if this in any way benefits anyone who watches, um, if it pushes you to study Torah more, like if it, when I'm learning secular books, when I'm learning math textbooks, which I'll, God willing, Bezal Hashem post some books, post some videos about that soon. Um, if it pushes you to learn math and to like, I kind of I wasn't always good at math, and I became very good at math as a result of this kind of method of learning that I've always had, which is just kind of this completionist approach. Um, and as a result, I got a master's. I got a master's in statistics, and I'm like, I got really good at math, and not because of any natural talent. I can assure you of that. I'm definitely not the smartest person at all. But yeah, God willing, more to be seen soon with that. And thank you for joining me. And if it leads, again, feel free to engage. You can ask me questions, and I'd be more than happy to try and answer the best of my ability. But again, I'm not a rabbi. I'm not I'm just someone who loves to learn. And I'm not an expert in any field. I mean, probably the only field I know that I can probably say I'm an expert in is probably statistics and mathematics. It's probably the only thing I could say that I'm an quote unquote expert on, but I'm probably like got like the lowest rung of expert. Because I haven't like done like years and years and years of research, like postdoc and this and that. But like, um, regardless, uh, I'm just a guy who likes to learn, and if you're a person that likes to learn too, feel free to share your thoughts and feel free. I find the best way to stick to learning something is to care about it. If you can find a way to care about it and for it to mean something to you, and also for you to find deep interest in it, I think that's kind of like 90% of the battle when it comes to really sticking to picking up skills, picking up knowledge. And knowledge is a beautiful thing. I think that knowledge for its own sake, Torah for its own sake, you know, it's beautiful. Torah lishma, like do it for the love of the game, and that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.